Step 3. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God, as we understood Him. As practicing addicts, our will and our lives were controlled by drugs. Our choices were determined by drugs. We were trapped by our need for connections and cash. Then, when we got the drugs, the search was over for a few hours or maybe a few days. During that time our total being, the mind, body, the soul was dominated by the drug. For a time it was pleasurable, at least in the early stages of addiction. Ultimately, the effect began to wear off and then the drug showed its ugly side. Often we found that the higher our drugs took us, the lower they brought us. When our nerves were jangling like a fire alarm, we faced two choices. Either we suffered withdrawal, or we took more drugs. For all addicts, the day comes when there is no longer a choice. We must have more drugs. Whether we are under the influence or not, our will, our lives and every single action is directly controlled by drugs. Obviously, our way did not work. In utter desperation, we looked for another way. In Narcotics Anonymous, we are told that we can turn our will and our lives over to the care of a God of our own understanding. This is a giant step, anyone can take it. We don't have to be religious. All that is required is a willingness to believe. We had to be willing to do anything to get that next fix. What have we got to lose? We have only to believe what we see with our own eyes in the transformed lives of other NA members. That's all it takes, an open mind. If the word God bothers you, as it did many of us in the beginning, substitute recovery, good, love, NA, peace or anything positive, just so you mean it. None of these steps of NA work by magic. They work when they are lived. The steps of NA are easier to live by than the law of the needle, bottle, pill or joint. If you want to stay clean and are willing to do a few simple things and are honest with yourself, we guarantee that you can recover. We found that all we needed to do was try. When we gave our best effort to the program, it worked for us as it has worked for countless others. The third step does not say, we turned our will and our lives over to the care of God. It says, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God, as we understood Him. We made the decision. It was not made for us by the drugs, our families, a probation officer, judge, therapist or doctor. We did. For the first time since that first high, we have made a decision for ourselves. If you understand God to be simply whatever keeps the rest of us clean, that's fine. Ask that power to take care of you as it takes care of us, even if it makes you feel stupid. Go off by yourself and say silently, God, I've made a mess of my life. I can't solve my problems and I ask you to take care of me and show me how to live. When you honestly try, it will work. Many of us start our day with that prayer or a similar plea, Thy will be done. The release by letting go and letting God helps us develop what works here and now. We can experience this release daily by using the NA program. In the third step, we simply recognize that there is a force for good in the world and we cooperate with that force. We let good things happen to us. Every action we took in regard to drugs was an effort to get comfortable. It did not work, or we wouldn't be where we are today. When we turn to the God of our own understanding for care and direction and guidance, we learn the real meaning of comfort. If we have come this far in the NA program, we have already noticed some change in our lives. However, the change may not be as fast nor as dramatic as we wish. We turn to drugs because we are people who demand instant gratification and drugs gave us that instant satisfaction. We are impatient people. It is one of life's great problems for us. Just because we stop taking drugs, the problem doesn't immediately go away. We find that we will continue to have living problems. There are bills to be paid. We still have to function in society. Most of us still have families. We still have many of the same fears, doubts and insecurities. In fact, because we are now facing life without anesthesia, these problems appear to be more difficult and painful than ever. Do not lose heart. At these times in our recovery, the third step is our greatest source of strength and courage. We are no longer bogged down by addiction. We have surrendered our will and our lives to the care of a power greater than ourselves. We are now a part of the ultimate reality which has brought order out of chaos. We are no longer fighting fear, anger, guilt, remorse, self-pity, anxiety, depression and 1,000 other ills. Day by day, we discover the magnitude of the third step. This is the step where we come into contact with sanity we are promised in step 2. Reliance on a spiritual way of life is now possible for us. Our addiction is no longer a roadblock to God consciousness. We are slowly beginning to lose those paralyzing feelings of hopelessness. We who have lived in darkness and horror for so long begin to walk freely in the sunlight of reality. We find that our mood swings are less dramatic. We have natural highs followed by occasional lows. We are beginning to gain balance and harmony. We have learned to stop fighting and are learning to live. The only price is to quit fighting, surrender quietly and let the God of our own understanding take care of us. We have come to enjoy clean living and want more of the good things that the NA fellowship holds for us. We know now that we cannot pause in our spiritual program, we want all we can get. We are now ready for our first honest self-appraisal, and we begin with step 4,